Hello, and welcome to the next part, part 6 of the tutorial, First Steps in Metal Facade Construction. In this video, I would like to start the metal facade on this wall, which means I want to begin here, and construct a suspended metal facade. I will do this using the element layout. For this area, I will first need a sketch, which I will simply place on the wall. Next, I need to draw my boundary and my grid for the sketch, that is, for the metal panels. For this, I can initially start with a rectangle, which I will begin right over here. If I press the Shift key while placing, no parameter dimensions will be entered here either. Of course, I can drag the edges up or down as I like here. However, I would like to use intelligent dimensioning. I set my measurements. This means I specify here my values for where my facade should start or end. The upper edge. In this particular case, I will carefully prepare the necessary items, which essentially means that my items should extend approximately 200 millimeters in this specific area, and to make it significantly easier for myself later on, I want to precisely align with the glass edge. Of course, I can also define additional edges where I also want a certain value to extend. I want to securely close these corners, and in this designated area I also want to create a slight overhang and extend an edge. So in this particular case, I have clearly defined my main dimensions. I can of course set my additional edges here with the offset, and I simply just want to have 1500 as the distance. I can of course change this at any time, but I can also do it after I have already installed the facade. I could also take a numerical value here, which means I have a horizontal dimension of 5.180 and I want to have this equal. Then I can of course enter this using the calculator. For the vertical dimension, I will go with 1200, and this will be my grid for the facade. Now I have the options to install this equally, but I will also prepare my structure beforehand. This means I will create my structural assembly under the metal panels and pull this sketch back into this structural assembly. Additionally, I will ensure that all components are aligned properly and that the assembly process is smooth and efficient. This will help in maintaining the structural integrity and aesthetic appeal of the facade. Furthermore, I will double check all measurements to ensure accuracy and ensure that everything is in place for a seamless installation. Furthermore, I will reference this metal facade from the side again, just as we did in the first videos, so that my setup is correct again. So now I can work in this construction, or as I have shown repeatedly, switch to this construction where, for example, only this sketch would be included. This means I am now in the construction, and I will of course keep jumping back and forth. It is important for me to see how far my side closures all my items need to be integrated. So in this case, I will start by showing the element facade detail in the small construction. Here in this element facade, I can of course select the existing variants. You can also see here that I can select any number of my own variants. Now the dialog is starting for me. My preview is being loaded here. You can see here that I currently have 26 cassettes, and I have a variety of options to adjust these. I essentially start here by selecting a cassette, and with the control key I can also select multiple cassettes. Here I could also group them into so-called selection groups. I will simply define this as an Attica here, and I would like to define the respective angle for the Attica. After that, I would also like to modify these cassettes, and these cassettes should of course be executed as an outer corner on the left side in the horizontal section. Here I can also see in the preview how far this goes on the left side. It would of course make more sense to do this in the large drawing now, as I can work with the values more easily. Here in this particular case, I will also carefully modify this cassette right here. This essentially means that this cassette should naturally have a secure closure at the bottom, which I can then edit more easily and efficiently. Furthermore, these two cassettes should be defined as an outer corner on the left side, where I can redefine my values. I have defined and set this. I confirm it. The cassettes are installed. This calculation takes longer, which means you can see the percentage at the bottom. If certain calculations take too long, which will likely be the case with the calculation involving the connection, I will cut a small part out to avoid unnecessarily prolonging the video. In this case, you can see that I am already at about 75%, so I will leave this in original speed for now. One can see here that HiCAD has now integrated this sheet facade with the necessary brackets, which were all set in the variant, including the corners, the vertical edges, and of course the reinforcement plates. So I want to take a look at this facade that I created here using this sketch in its entirety. This means I switch to the overall model. Of course, this will first show me the small model because I haven't saved it yet, and it is loaded into the overall facade. As you can see, I have integrated my sheet facade here with the necessary corner points. There are certain corner points that still need to be further edited in this case, such as this transition here, which must be manually edited. Otherwise, I would encounter a collision. In the next step, however, I would like to set the substructure as well. For this, I will load my sketch from the element facade here. This means I want to reuse the same sketch. To do this, I can right-click here to load this sketch and pull this sketch to the side in my sheet facade. What is important now is that I do not need the horizontal edges for the substructure, which means I can remove them here by holding down the delete key. Thus, in this case, I only have the vertical edges left. I will create another sketch here because I also want a second substructure for this side, which means I need to create a sketch that goes upwards. I will dimension this sketch again in this case, and I would like to have a 10mm gap here. Of course, I can also name this sketch so that I can be more familiar with it afterwards. I pull this sketch back into the element layout and have created my substructure for this area in this case. I am switching back now to show it, and because it is also easier to work in small constructions, to the small construction. And now I would like to place the substructure here in this case. To do this, I select my sketch. I choose my variant for the substructure. I will go into the top view here to see where I would sit with my profile. I still assign my market, and from the sheet facade I see that I do not need this sketch, which means I can delete it and incorporate these profiles. In this case, you can see here that I still need to adjust this profile, and here I would need to adjust the length. So that means I go back into the variant, can of course edit my sketch here, want to pull this here, up to here, and in this case I just say adopt sketch and confirm this again with OK. So now my first profiles are correctly applied in a precise manner. I want to apply the second profile with this second sketch carefully. Again, pay attention to the position of the profile because I have a different distance here. 70 will be 75 here, and accurately. I want to delete this sketch, and by clicking OK, this area or profile will be integrated with attention to detail. I will now save this construction, and now I want the connection, meaning the holders and the clamps, to be placed in the correct position and precision. This is a longer calculation, so in this case I will definitely cut out part of it to keep it from being too long and ensure everything is correct. To do this, I start the connection command. Select the element placement and the first substructure and make sure it is saved properly, and ensure the connection is secure, and verify the placement is accurate, and confirm the calculation is correct, and ensure the process is efficient, and make sure the elements are aligned, and ensure the structure is stable, and verify the components are in place, and ensure the design is optimal, and confirm the setup is complete. With OK, I start the command, and now HiCAD begins the calculation for me. So in this case, the substructure has been set, and I also have the cutouts ready here. That means I will simply hide a sheet here so that it can be seen a little better. And you can see here that the clamps are in the right place. The holders have been placed, and of course the cutouts for the sheets in the substructure rails have been correctly applied. The same should be done on the next page, but I will skip that to avoid unnecessary length. I can continue to edit the profiles. Normally, meaning I could say I want to shorten or lengthen this profile by, for example, minus 50 millimeters. In this case, I have seen that shortening or lengthening is the wrong option, which means I would need to cut this profile at this point. I have, of course, set it to lengthen, which makes the difference in whether this area is also lengthened or not. I can use this here for what I naturally need, in this case, the most diverse variants. As mentioned earlier, I can also store any custom cassettes here and define this with the element facade. I am now switching back to my overall model, where I have, of course, gathered everything here. That means one must also imagine that this facade could be done by a second technician, so the sheet facade could be handled by someone who might be more knowledgeable about it than about the post and beam facade. And one could easily combine this again. Furthermore, there is of course the possibility here to define and summarize this in my own areas, meaning in the detail sections. That means I close this construction, or actually I don't need to close it, I just switch to Helios. We have already made a horizontal section on the left side, which means I will open this construction, which is indeed the section view on the left side, and save this construction again. That would then be my detail 4 in this case. Transition from BR to sheet metal. With OK, I save this construction. I also change the name here so that I can recognize it later, and you can see that I have my detail 4 here, which I can summarize. Now I have created my cut, and I want to pull this detail I made over to the other side. This means everything should stay the same, but I want to see this area, and the detail should of course become larger in this case. That will suffice. With apply, it has pulled this detail to the other side. I must of course change the name here, which I overlooked. This is why there is still the 01 and the 04, because I pulled the detail out once, and once took it from the floor plan, and I copied this floor plan, which is why it appears here twice. This means I actually have to do the same thing again, where I will also change a name and the position, which would then be for my 3D detail. It went in the wrong direction. So with apply, I also pulled the 3D detail along, and here in this case I see my second detail. In this case, it is still very nice to see that I have the facade in the construction, because I only brought in the sheets from the entrance facade This means I ensure that my world coordinate system is up to date, and with the right mouse button I can search for a reference part from my project, which would be my sheet metal facade on the side that we just created. With OK, I import this file or this area. I will be prompted again, so the reference point on the part, right mouse button, and the reference point in the construction again, right mouse button, and thus my side sheet metal facade was imported into my construction. I will update all cut views here so that this is also changed, and thus I have created my sheet metal facade. In this case, I now see for the first time that I actually want to pull this sheet outwards, since I now simply have far too little space in this case. I can also solve this quite easily via the element facade. This means if I want to change the element facade, I have the element facade in this case, and I could do this again. This means I go here and start my feature of element placement. I want to pull out these sheets here on the side, meaning I want the distance from the left to be 150. This means I pull it out to minus 150, which means that we are pulling it 150 millimeters outward on the left side. And I confirm this again. For me, it is simply very important to say and to see that I can easily change and edit this at any point in the HiCAD. That means in this case, I have pulled the sheet facade outward. Of course, I must pull the profile outward, or perhaps need a completely different connection in this case. But here you can see it. You can see very clearly that I can easily edit this facade no matter where. I can see here now, I hadn't noticed this earlier, I accidentally set my coating side to be displayed in the section which I do not want in my detail views. It is also important to see here that if I want to move this profile, I could easily move this profile at this point anytime. If I want to have 10 millimeters of space as an example, I could do this in the section. And this would also have the same effect here in the 3D view. However, I would like to remove this substructure here, as I will simply generate a different connection to the post and beam facade in further videos. But it's not that easy to do this in this area. I am of course aware that with the element facade, when I have prepared something, like in this case taking a ready-made variant, I am much faster than if I have to draw it manually. However, it is also often the case that one has to draw their own facades. I hope you enjoyed it, and I am already looking forward to the next video.